So how would you describe someone like him, a politician or a technocrat politician?
He is a technocrat. He has never held any political office. But we know by nature, man is a political animal.
You see, that's the argument, because if you go back to what Mr. Seriki did say, it would mean, for instance, if they have to do anything within the party, the APC in Delta State, they must consult with him. And his question is, are you certain he's not a card-carrying member of that political party? Because that is what has been given to that state. So if the APC of Delta State are going to meet, for instance, he definitely will be part of those people to take decisions for the party. So if you look at it in that perspective, it then means that technocrats can also be politicians, and politicians are also technocrats.
Technocrats should be politicians. Everybody should be a card-carrying member of political parties. The fact of being a card-carrying member of political parties does not remove the fact that you cannot perform. So
performance now is the thing. It's not about asking people to bring in technocrats or politicians.
No, technocrats sometimes can be problems. I mean, we've seen situations where we have professors, and they will get into the ministry, they won't know a jack, they won't do anything, they won't be able to perform. So it's not a question of your level of education. It's not also a question of that you're in the private sector. It's a question of how can you perform? And if you're not a politician, mind you, you can't even drive the civil service, because civil service also has a lot of politicians inside it. They are not card-carrying members, but they do politics more than the politicians in most cases.
So if you go back to what it is that you've said, if we take your earlier submissions, it would seem that, there's no hard and fast rule as to, a ministerial list that, a president or even governors should come up with. What people always say is that he must always come up with people he can work with, people who will help him realize his dream. But I want to ask you, how much influence or how much do you think that this ministerial screening shows or tell about ministers to be?
Yes, I think it is the prerogative of the president to think of those that he can work with. Now, but remember that some of these people, the president may not know them. He will rely on the recommendations of some other people. Mm-hmm. Now, what would the Senate, what are they supposed to do? What the Senate at this is supposed to do is to help the president in his choice. If, for instance, the president either knows me or thinks he knows me, or somebody has recommended me to him, for instance, and I appear and he submits my name, when I appear before the Senate, it is for the Senate to look at me critically and say, Chukwuma, you cannot do this work, or that you can do it. And how would they arrive at that? It has to be objective. The objective method is to find out, first, they've looked at my resume. My CV would have said things about my academic qualifications, if I had worked before, if I had done anything. But that might, remember I prepared the CV.
Yeah, but that also goes to, will I say also to tell Mr. President that he didn't quite search properly. There'll be, to say that, the Senate is doing, of course the Senate will do its job, and, they also have a role to play. But then if the Senate looks you in the eye and says, they don't think you can do this job, the question will be, what was Mr. President thinking when he put you on the list?
The President submitted a list of 36 members. Jesus Christ chose 12, and one of them was bad.
But he knew.
Oh, because God. Because of the issue of God involved in him. Yes, because of the issue of God involved in him. It was for a purpose. But that does not mean that the president, who is not Jesus Christ, neither Jesus Christ or Muhammad, would not know everything. So it is now for the Senate to help. If the Senate says, if the president chooses 36, we must give it to him. That simply means that there is no need for the Senate to be there in the first place to clear them. If you trust that the president knows everything, and if the president trusts that he knows everything, then we should go and amend the constitution and say, the president, appoint your ministers, these are people you want to work with. These are 36 members out of more than 12 million that voted for him. 36 of it. So the 12 million that voted for him, there will still be another 36. Assuming the Senate says this 36 cannot work, there will be another 36. And the 12 million, are you saying there can be?
One wonders, because yes, the president is the one that was elected to do the job, and so according to law, he's also required to bring people who will help him execute what he's been asked to do by Nigerians who elected him into office. But You know, who knows? Maybe we should hypothesize now. Assuming there's a cabinet reshuffle midway into the tenure, or someone pulls back or is pulled back because he or she didn't meet with those expectations. If the question then is, if that happens, what would we say that the essence of the screening by the Senate, whatever people say is the purpose, would we say it has been achieved? Or is this just a ritual every 4 years?
You know, we are humans. I am not indicting presidential action, but I am saying that the system was made in such a way to help the presidential discretion. That is one. Then two, when these people come up, we are humans, like I said. If the Senate in their wisdom agrees with the president that the 36 men sent to them are the best that he can work with, not the best in Nigeria, but the best that he can work with, and the president tries them, maybe 1 year, 2 years, and finds out that some of them cannot really, these are not what he actually thought. That is not necessarily an indictment on the Senate. You know, that is not also necessarily an indictment on the discretion of the president. But it is also good that we know that it is a general indictment on every person involved in the exercise. And when people don't work sometimes, you may also try to find out why can they not work.
That's part of the crux of the matter, because the question is, we've seen this process maybe every 4 years, whenever ministers are screened. Is the process working in the light of the results that we've seen over the years?
In Nigeria, it doesn't seem to be working because we have not started doing the right things. And that's exactly what we are saying today.
But the question is, have we also identified what it is that we need? Because if you say that, oh, you know, we want this person to do a certain job, the person, you that is bringing up the job, must also know what it is that you want done in that job. And you must ensure that, you know, the people that you're getting fitted. There is a delicate balance of politics and economics there. I think there was one of the sessions we attended at the NESG where Senator, beg your pardon, Alhaji Shamsuddin Usman said that if you get the politics right, the economics will work. You know, because there have been instances where, you know, people who might be extremely brilliant or perfectly brilliant are nominated, and there are people say, we don't know these people, they're not known to us. That cannot be economics. That definitely is politics. So even if you have the best of intentions and you don't get the politics right, it won't work in certain instances. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree that you need to get both right. You need to get the politics right. You need to get also the people right. It's just like the president may have, for instance, 20 of his cousins. Very good, one of the best, among the best materials. He wouldn't have to appoint 20 of his cousins, you know, because it will not be, the politics will not be right. The system may be right, but the politics will not be right. So, and that is one. Then the second aspect becomes, even when you are appointing from outside, you must also, I mean, for instance, in a state, you will have not less than 10, 15, 20% that are qualified in a state. So getting the politics right there will also involve that if you're a member of APC, you will find out some good members of the APC who are competent and who can command respect and who would have, you know, the support of members of the state. Somebody asked me, why should senators from a state endorse the nominee from their state? I said, number one, there is a presumption that in that state there are about 3 million people or 1 million persons, for instance. Second, if a senator is appointed from Bauchi State, for instance, or rather, if somebody is appointed from Bauchi State, somebody from Anambra State may not know the nominee more than the people that are from Bauchi. So the real reason is that people from Bauchi will say, oh, this person you have appointed, though, is a cantankerous person. You people will see it.
He might know his job, but he might be very
yes, that is it. You know, and that is why you have to take his recommendation into consideration. You know, you may decide to do otherwise.
If we go back to how you started, then it will mean that is really not tenable, because if you say it's like a job interview, we don't bring people before the public and say we are conducting a job interview, bringing people from his or our locality for us to know the man better. So we just, you know, ask questions based on what you have provided and based on what we think that we can glean off you. And that's what I think that the senators have done with this one. So must we always go back to where I'm from, my street I grew up in, for you to know me better?
In America and in most of the places, they want to find out from where you're coming, which streets were you coming from. Were you an area boy?
But you can find out without bringing people from my street.
Not from your CV, not the CV you prepared. It's just like she said, you must get the politics also right.
Then that's the work of the DSS. If they say they've gone through security, then we should bring that before the police.
But we also know that DSS most times, sometimes they may have some oversights in certain areas, especially depending on who is sending them to do the job. And that's where Nigeria is not getting it right. And sometimes the DSS may even send those reports and somebody decides to ignore it. Yes.
Interesting. All right, Chukwuma Ezeala, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts today.
Thank you.